outside of Chicago, Illinois, in the cornfields.
Beautiful. Hey, James.
Morning, y'all.
Morning. Aw. I just got a big rush of warmth in my heart when I saw your smile. Funny thing about this is I have absolutely no idea how many people are coming to this call, so it might just be the five of us. We might have 20 more people show up in the next few minutes, so I'll just give us a few minutes to settle and land and see if anybody arrives. We have an hour and a half booked, which I think is plenty of time for what I want to do here. So, yeah,
I'll probably have to leave early. I don't know if it matters.
that's great. I appreciate you being here for the time that you are. That's awesome. I'll just put a link here. I don't know. There's been so many people who have signed up early for this app that I've been working on, but I'll just put a link here in case by chance you haven't um, seen this yet. This is what we're talking about here today, and also a way for you to get on the list if you wanna be on the list. Get started in maybe 1 or 2 minutes. Hmm.
I have trouble answering the questions, and that's why I have gone to register like 4 times.
Oh, that's great feedback. What questions do you have a hard time answering?
Um, it could just be me too. But so I don't know and like what it is yet enough to know what I'm looking for or if I'd pay money for it or um yeah. So I feel like I want to say yes to those things because I trust the people involved and the liminal web, but also I get like, well, I don't want to be lying about something.
I love that. I appreciate your what I would call integrity. That's great. Um, yeah, well, that's a great place to start. So maybe you could tell me like how it lands for you, like what as you experience it as it is, what do you what's your story of like, okay, here's what I'm interacting with.
So it's gonna make me emotional when I talk about this because anytime I talk about the connection stuff, I um so I've been in this liminal space about I mean, really in it. I guess I didn't realize how much I was dabbling on the edges, but really in it like 4 years ish. Um and everybody is just so open to connect and everybody is like I feel like if you just kind of walk around the space, you're already doing it. So I don't understand like what the app is going to enhance from just the serendipity of what's been happening in the web since COVID in my experience. You know what I mean? So I guess that's where I get like stuck a little.
Great. Great. Yeah, beautiful. So I'll just share a little bit of how we got here to help ground this. I in my 20s I built an app I'm 33 now, so I'm talking about, whatever, 7 years, 8 years ago, whatever. I built a Tinder swiping app uh, to meet people, to meet other people to play golf with. Actually, that was like my desire. Um, and recently, maybe 3 months ago, I just sat down and I like got totally taken over and spent 3 days coding an app again. I just was like, for 3 days, I didn't do anything except sit at my computer and code this Tinder app. And then I was like sitting there and I was going, I wonder if like all the communities in the world who I would actually want to really connect. Like who's this app for? I don't really care about connecting golfers right now. Like that was something in my early 20s that I thought would be fun. Um, but um, but yeah, so I was coding and I was like, oh, what would be really fun? It would be to have a way for people in liminal web and I run a global community called Our Emerging Future that's got several hundred people in it. I was like, a lot of us are. Sometimes I say this thing of, I'm like, I can't believe it's 2025 and humanity hasn't solved this life partner thing yet, right? Like, what? How's there not just an app that you go into and it's like, here's the 10 people on planet Earth you're most likely to want to spend the rest of your life with, you know? And every time I say that, people are like, why don't you just build it for us? And so finally it's like, okay, like, okay, maybe we'll actually do that. And then it brings all these crazy cool uh, things online, right? Like if you look at the liminal web, typically on a dating app, people pair people by interests, right? But I have this assumption or story that actually all of us here have all the same interests. We all care about embodiment and shadow work and regenerative farming and planetary systems and like so it's like okay, matching us on interests is kind of silly. Like we're all interested in the same things and we're all just interested and interesting people. So how do you even know who you want to connect with? Like what are the ways that we decide that we want to deepen in relationship with somebody? Like how is it in the liminal web that some connections are more surface and some really go the distance as a romantic partner or as a creative partner? And I'm just delighting in these conversations I'm getting to have with people right now about human connection and codifying the relational field and what really matters to us deep down in partnership. And I could say so much about all the crazy cool conversations I've gotten to have with people, but I feel like the thing I really care about. So one thing I want to be explicitly clear about is this is not just a pop-up app for like the 1 month that Limicon is going on. This would be like all year round. You could just hop into this app and meet people. Um, and I have some cool ideas for how it could work, but I just want to ground it in this. I feel like everyone sort of already has. My story is most of us have a sort of innate understanding of how these swiping apps work because there's so many of them. I don't know if that's true or not, but that's an assumption that I have. And so I was like, maybe we could just leverage already existing neural pathways and get a really incredible group of human beings more connected. So anyway, that's where I'm at with it. Um, yeah.
Well, I love that vision. It's beautiful.
And hey, Daryl, welcome. I'm so happy you're here. It makes this call 10 times more fun for me having you in the room. Yeah, so I would just love to open it up. I'm the only one who's not permanently on mute, it seemingly. So I would love to just kind of see how this is for you all. What's happening for you? How's it landing?
Yeah, let's see. On the helping it land front, as someone who is old enough to have never used a swiping app, I'm kind of curious of what do you do after you swipe, and kind of like just what are the core mechanics of the app here?
Yeah, so from a technical perspective, the way that swiping apps work is you go on the app and you're served profiles. And if you swipe right on that profile, it means you're interested. If that person swipes right on you, you both swipe right on each other, then you can start chatting with each other. It opens up a message thread. If one of you swipes left, then that doesn't happen. So you swipe left to say not interested, you swipe right to say interested. If you both swipe right, it opens up a thread to start chatting with each other.
Okay. And then you start, well, and then you start, you either ghost each other or you start dating or something on
Right.
the dating apps, from there. Okay. So is the concept for this space like combo life partners and collaboration partners and whatever else kinds? Is it all mixed together or?
Right now, I've got four categories I've identified that I'm curious to see. I want to know who people want to meet, right? So is it? I know people want to meet life partners because I've heard that from enough people that I just know that it's the case. Um, the second one is people to create with. Like conventionally, you'd call it a co-founder, but I think it's a little bit less formal in these more emergent uh, organizations. And then the third is essentially friends. I'm just calling it people to be in community with, but I've delegated it into people to be in physical community with and people to be in online community with. So just to give you the four I've got so far, people to date, people to create with, people to be in physical community with, and people to be in online community with.
And then do those just act kind of like as subcategories that sort of subdivide the pool of who matches with who?
It's an option. It's an option that you could filter the swiping by, like, I want to swipe for romantic partners or I want to swipe for people to be in online community with. The other thing is you just name like this is an app to meet people for at least these four categories. I do think there are other ones that I haven't named yet. Um, but then you meet people and you go, okay, what's here? Right? Like this is just Forrest Wilson's way of meeting people is I'm like, okay, here's this beautiful being in front of me. What is this relationship? Right? Like let's just be in the discovery process of is this a friendship? Is this a we're gonna start living together? Like, you know what I mean? Just kind of from nothing. And I'm not gonna force that on anyone, but it's a really fun way to it's a really fun way to meet people. And welcome, Thomas. Good to have you here. Nice to meet you. If we haven't, I'm pretty sure we haven't met yet, but if we have, good to see you again.
Okay, good to see you.
I actually have a question for you, Danielle, about you said if you're just kind of walking around the web spaces, you bump into people and meet people. And I don't unless it's like a structured meeting. Usually I don't have light touch, just social interactions. And I'm curious where you go and what you do already that you're feeling like the app might not be an addition or something, or I don't want to put words in your mouth, but
Um, I think my nature is very exploratory. So I feel like I have some things in my Facebook feed, like groups that I follow. I have things in my LinkedIn that I follow. I am on some mighty networks that I kind of follow. And I think there's lots of opportunities available, or I have found lots of opportunities available just kind of like going to a thing and being in a room. And I'll like read the descriptions and it's like, oh, I feel called to this space, like something, I don't know why. Out of all the 20 meetings in a day that might pop up on my radar, it's like, oh, these are the ones that feel right. I go to them and then I've, excuse me, a little sick, been finding that there's just amazing people in all those rooms. And then you continue the conversation. And then some of them are with LinkedIn or I don't know. And the thing that's been good with it for me is that everybody seems very open and welcoming. Like even in Emergent Commons, Mari, I know I think there sometimes, and the welcome that you did into that space, I just remember, like I still remember that as being like an important thing as part of my development in this web, and like feeling like I have a place to be. Um, and so, yeah, it just seems like everybody wants to, like, we all see it in each other that we're doing the same thing, right? And we try to name it, and then it gets all blah, blah, blah. But like, we know, and then we see each other in a different room. You might meet somebody in this other room, and that starts to connect more. And it just feels like it's happening to me. And so a lot of these things that we talk about, and not just this app, but in the space where it's like, well, we want to make this thing happen. We want to put something on it to make it happen. Feels like I don't know what that's doing different. Now, you kind of said it like I can see it if it's like the network map living on past Limicon, like that type of thing makes sense to me. But yeah, I think it just feels like it's happening and we don't have to. Anyway, I'm done.
It feels so important what you're saying, Danielle, and I want to just point to the gesture that you're doing because I see this gesture and my system's like, oh yeah, we definitely don't want that. Like that feels like some um, I don't know, some imposed structure on top of a natural, organic unfolding that's happening. And I'm curious for this app from this side of things, is there a way that this could just provide some scaffolding or support to cross-pollinate more? Um, but I just want to reflect that back because there's so much intelligence in that gesture. I really think it's important that we don't, from a top down, say like this is how we need to start organizing ourselves and connecting with each other. It's more like is this a way to support what's already happening even more robustly?
I'm curious about what Mark is thinking right now.
I'm still a little disoriented, which I think is normal, right, for Limicon. But yeah, because I've encountered a lot of different interfaces and apps and ideas and people, and not really quite. Um, it's just kind of like floating around, in my mind right now, with not a lot of clarity. But I do feel something like this is potentially useful. I'm not, looking for a romantic partner or anything at this point, but I am interested in matching with people, finding people who have interests and activities and are aware of resources that are all, resonant with what I'm into, and it might show me some next steps, or potential directions to go in, both in my personal pursuits and in forming new relationships. I don't feel like, I'm an introvert. I am always reading and consuming information and writing and things like that. So I don't feel like I have a lot of bandwidth, for relationships, but I also know and feel that I need them, especially, after having retired and don't have those relationships anymore. Uh, and I'm the oddball in my extended family. So, we can talk about, superficial things, but it rarely gets beyond that. Yeah, so I see value in something like this. I don't know if I've not looked to see if anything like this exists, so I don't know. I assume you have, Forrest. Um, yeah, so like market research, is this out there already, or something like it? You're looking at dating apps, I know. But yeah, this is, I've heard other ideas this week that are last week that were involved, basically at the root of it was matching something, matching interests, matching communities, matching, where you want to live, how you want to live, that sort of thing. I think it's a great need for that. So you're on something important. I just don't know how this puzzle piece fits in with all the other things.
Can I talk, Danielle? I just want to appreciate that you started with I'm an exploratory person. Um, and that actually helps a lot. Like I'm not on Facebook or I just got on LinkedIn and I have like two connections. I don't know how to scroll. Like I'm not in groups, other than emerging comments. And I I find in like broadcast type situations, I'm like, oh, that's an interesting person, but like, who the fuck am I? Like, sure, if we ever were in a meeting, then it would be apparent. But outside in a text-based, like message, like, hey, do you want to talk to me? I'm fucking nobody. I have zero online presence, you know, like I'm pretty badass, and you have no reason to say yes to talk to me, really, And so I feel like if the app kind of bridges a space like I want to meet and then fill in the blank, because I don't know who actually wants to meet people or who just wants to sell stuff or who wants to, like who wants to make a positive impact, but from this side of the screen, and like all my relationships are online. I have one in-person friend, but I can't talk to anything about like my life, like what I'm interested in because they just don't. I mean, they just tell me, "Oh, you think too much." Oh, blah, like all the time. And so I'm sure people get that. And my whole family lives, on the other side of the country, and so I don't know how to make the first step. That's like I just want to have a conversation and like see what could happen. Interestingly, Forrest, I also don't consider myself a creator. Um, I've recently just barely come into considering myself creative because I used to kind of like too much pair it with artistic, and I'm not. But I am creative in that I create experiences, or like I create an energetic container in which something might be able to happen that didn't otherwise happen. And so I'm just coming into like this a different role. I kind of lost my job last week, so I'm kind of hard pivoting into having to broadcast and like do scrolly kind of things that I never did before, and do that. But um I feel like there is actually a beautiful point, and I'm introverted and actually, believe it or not, like pretty shy. So if I'm in a structured space where there's like a role and a thing that's happening, a beautiful thing happens there. And then usually for me, it's like done. Like there's nothing afterwards. And so I feel like just the having those different ways of like, do you want to engage? So if you're on the app, you're a yes somehow. And then that's like a relaxing point for me, like, oh, like there's a potential conversation, and it like eases something personally.
Didn't have two hands to make the same sign, but I just want to appreciate your share and thank you. And also just a lot of desire to support, just even from what I know even about you secondhand, Mari, if there's any way that I or I'm sure so many people around you, maybe more than you know, if there's any way we can support during this time, like yeah, please.
We're actually close enough to have in-person coffee, James.
Oh, are we? Oh, well,
Aren't
we
you in
should do that
Seattle?
then.
Yeah, I'm
We
like
should
an
do
hour
that.
north of you.
Okay.
Oh, and thank you, Mark, for that comment. Yes, I loved doing that role. Thank you.
And thinking about structure then. I'm like, okay, yeah, getting in the app and getting into a space where people have a shared intention and a shared purpose. I'm like, cool, that's one layer. And then I'm like, ooh, what's the second layer? Because I think I run into a like I sort of an I hate texting kind of thing of like if I get dumped into like a here now have a text chat, like texting to me, maybe it's just a generational thing, but it feels like there's this kind of thick curtain of like, oh, you can just put little tiny bits of context through the texting wall, and you're kind of tossing tiny little messages, like little, I don't know, little maybe messages in a bottle, or you're tossing rocks over the curtain or something like that. That I don't know. I feel like I'm not sure how to get from a text message to anywhere. Maybe you just, I don't know. Maybe you don't. Maybe I see all these, social media things about people's disastrous, Tinder, Bumble, Hinge, text chats or whatever. And I'm like, maybe that's not it. Maybe you just say like, do you want to meet or do you want to talk or something like that? And maybe you just skip through that sooner. But I don't know. I'm thinking about structures and just like how to help scaffold people and what are then the follow-on type of things that would like make it easy to yeah, to make those connections because I really get the like the the who am I and the what the heck do I say to this person and what is even how do I open or what's the bridge into even like feeling out what is this person like actually open to, not just like some random checkbox they click, but like what are they actually interested in? Some of that stuff.
Yeah, I love it. I love it, James, because it's really been challenging me to rethink the way that we meet each other. And one idea that's been coming up in conversation with people is on the profile, since the one thing I thought about is what if your profile actually said like here's events that I've been to recently, because that's such a demonstration of what we care about. It's like, oh, if I went to Burning Man or if I went to the Integral Conference or if I went to Limicon, there's like that's a real identifier of how I invest my time and attention and money and energy. And then and another thought that I had was once you do actually like typically you swipe right with people and then there's this whole journey of like how do we even start communicating with each other? And I'm with you, by the way, James. I don't want to text a bunch and I definitely don't want to do like, hey, how are you? It's like for crying out loud. Like what? Like, what I mean? It's just like good, you know what I mean? Like, how about you? Like it's just like a nightmare. And so one of the thoughts that I had was what if there was a deeper thing that wouldn't be publicly displayed on like your profile, but it was like 4 or 5 sentence stems of what I really care about right now. And the kind of connections that I'm looking for and the thing I've been the most upset about lately, or like the thing that I feel most lit up by, and like, I would drop everything I'm doing right now and go to, etc. And if you both swipe right, then that um, more like soul card is immediately shared with each other in your chat. And so you go, okay, I got your public facing uh, profile, and now we connected, and I get a deeper window in, and it gives me things that I can be like, okay, there's something really here I can be in relationship to beyond just like how you doing. It's like, okay, as I read this, I see this. When I do that, I think you need to meet James, or I think of this thing I'm pulling together next week. It's like we can immediately just dive in, and maybe that's the way we do it or not, but that's the intention is like to have a more immediate way of getting to the nectar and connection, right? Hey, Tucker. So yeah, that's uh that's one thing I've been.
Curious, Forrest, if you know about Ecotho.
I don't. Do you have a
Well,
link,
Kevin knows a lot more than I do.
Kevin? Do you have a link, or I'd love to know about it.
Yeah, so it's like a Kevin, do you want to say a few words about it since you're so much more intimately involved with it?
If there's time, I just jumped in. I apologize for being late. Is this appropriate?
Perfect. And you're right on time. It's good to have you.
Okay, great, great. It is a software program that provides a container for four people, anywhere from 2 to 4 people, to have a conversation around a question. And it guides them through. It's almost like having a skilled facilitator, except that the facilitator is very rigid because it first of all, each person individually goes through meditation or some sort of breathing practice. So each person has a choice to go through one of these two practices, and then brought into the room and guided through a presencing uh, section, and then through a what comes up for you around this question, and then for about 90 minutes you have um, open conversation about it, and then there's a timer that goes off, and there's a wrap up and exit. So the software provides this container for that we usually go through, like grounding practices and checking in, and what's coming up for you around this topic, and then there's an open dialogue, and then a nice gentle wrap up. And the aesthetics of the design is really nice. And almost everyone who's had this experience with Ecofo has a positive experience with it. We've had one person who said, I don't like machines guiding me. Yeah.
One thing in the very beginning that it feels important is each person submits a question they're interested in exploring. And then you get the list of questions at the beginning, and then you put your number of hearts or whatever I think next to the question, and then that's how the question is decided. So there's shared input for, which I'm not saying use this exact app, but there's something, seems like something alive and like almost going fairly immediately into some live conversation around a shared question.
And yes, Forrest, that does look like the right link. They've been testing it in a few communities. It looks like they're getting close to going to other communities and offering this.
Amazing. I'm excited to explore it more. And Tucker was just messaging me and reminding me that I met Kyle, who created it last year. So,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
So I have a question. I don't know a whole lot about like matching algorithms and that sort of thing, but I recall, I think it was about 2017 or 2018, there was a lot of discussion, like in LinkedIn and places like that, about um, this idea of having a personal board of directors. Okay, and the idea was that whatever your personality and your cognitive style and your interests, whatever your profile is, that there's going to be some set of other profiles, that will be a good match to help you more fully develop yourself and your ideas and your vision, your values, all those things. And there was another idea going around which cannot find now. I can find the personal board of directors that was more business oriented, but there was another set of ideas that was more based on archetypes and sort of depth psychology ideas. It's like based on your psychological profile, which you could use like Big Five or any of those more validated types of psych profiling methodologies. But based on your profile, you're going to have like biases and gaps and blind spots and things like that. And so certain other profiles of people are going to help complement yourself. So is there any thought into integrating something like that in as an option or as part of the underlying matching?
Matching people based on personality types.
Yeah.
It's an interesting thought. I had a conversation with someone about this yesterday about matching people with personality types, and also they were saying you should match people based on attachment styles. And um, it got into an interesting conversation because I was saying that what I'm playing with right now is what if we assumed that everyone has secure attachment and that we have insecure moments, and playing with that as an idea of like what if we matched people more in our gold or in our radiance or in our deeper self, and then like held the experiences where we're not coming from that more as a phenomena. And it was interesting to do that in relationship to personality stuff as well, because for most typology assessments, right, like my understanding of them is that actually we're all of them, like whether it's astrological or disc or Myers-Briggs or whatever, that we're all of them. And so it gets me into a curious question of, do we most personality matchmaking things are based on your identity as one of these personality types. And the way I've been playing with it is like, what if we assume that actually we're all of these types, but some of them are more fleshed out or robust in us than others. And that creates some really cool opportunities, because it could be that I want to match with people where we're more in our strength. Like, I was born in August, so my sun sign is a Leo. Like, allegedly, I'm supposed to get along with certain people better based on that thing, right? Based on my birthday. But it could also be like, oh, I want to connect with some people in the places where I'm not as fleshed out or I'm not as robust, and I want to practice my Taurus, for example. So these are just fun things that I like wonder about over here. It's um, probably not the best use of my time, but I think it's fun to like explore how could we play with carving up ourselves in these different ways and then being in relationship with different intentions.
Maybe I'll poke in one related direction because the board of directors comment got me thinking about groups. And with all the work that I've kind of done with crews using the microcellularity word, or pods or squads, or some form of small group, that's a really potent kind of space and combination. And I wonder, questioning even kind of like the individualistic atomic assumptions of maybe some of the dating apps in particular, and how might that be interestingly subverted here. But then it opens up to a whole new space of like, oh well, if you're looking for people to be in community with, well then are you looking for communities, or are you looking for groups? And opening that up is probably a whole can of worms from the app perspective of how do you even handle any of that. But yeah, there's a whole other dimension of the multi-person and the group nature there.
I want to talk more about that, James. Yeah, swiping as a group, or having groups inside the app that you could swipe and then get added into. I feel like a lot of what's possible in this app is cross-pollination, right? It's like all it takes is one person from one community meeting someone from another community, and you can have worlds of bridges get built. And so I'm just curious about that. I want to talk more about yeah, like you said. Yeah, I want to talk more about that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that kind of bridging, yeah, maybe that is the best way forward, because I've seen that it's harder to get groups going than individual pairwise connections going. It's just harder. And I've seen like the 29K app did actually a fairly decent job of bringing people who don't know each other into small groups and then having them do stuff together inside, or really guided by the 29K app. And even there, I don't think it really worked. Or I think it's just like it's tough. It takes a lot of context, um, and probably best happens inside of an actual real community. So yeah, I don't know that reinventing the wheel or trying to become a space that is rich enough that groups can form. Like, yeah, I don't know if that's necessarily the best direction or something. But yeah, I love the the cross-pollination and something, I don't know, somehow how do we, yeah, sort of be harmonic with these other spaces that are out there and floating around and provide a kind of a much richer connective context.
How that lands in me, James, is there's a question here of like, okay, on the one hand, in an app like this could be used to facilitate the emergence of new groups, whether it's a pod or a whole 100-person collective. But it feels like this is more about connecting already existing groups that aren't aware of each other, or like even a layer deeper than that is like there are people who are super connectors and really like the people inside communities who know everybody. And if you start connecting the connectors or connecting the weavers, then there's a lot of miracles that can happen. It's like maybe the latent potential in the latent intra community potential is a really like um fascinating place to be double clicking on, is like what could be possible in facilitating uh more connection in what's already existing but unaware of itself.
I have this dream of like there's a bridge I like to walk to, and it's two rivers, like the confluence of two rivers, and there are all these little like eddies that form these perfect whirlpools. And I think of like human potential like that, like we come in together into these small ephemeral groups and be the most good, true, beautiful, perfect thing in like the most, efficient, lovely energy. You do the thing and then you move on. And it seems like the app could facilitate that in the way that you're talking about, with connecting connectors and super connectors. And like you could like almost like, even when you're talking about connecting creators specifically, some things are short creations, and having even something like a wanted ad, like if you're in a community but it doesn't, there's not very much tech in it, there's not an app builder, and you're like, hold on, I know I know an app builder in this other place over here, for some kinds of, connecting to other people. And so I think also in that way, like I love the Limicon map, how you can see, people, I love that feature. And some feature of like the who, uh also it's a step, it's also removes a bit of a step. If I'm like, oh, Danielle knows this person, maybe I could like reach out and say, hey, you're in my area and you know Danielle. That's like almost a starting point in, in and of itself for a conversation. But it seems like there's a lot of potential with the, not that I'm not talking about the dating or the meeting friends, but the creators part. Like I said, I wouldn't probably have put myself in that category, but I think it's really interesting. And I'd probably want to at least be a benevolent lurker. But I think there's a lot of potential there for, it doesn't have to be long term, like we're starting a business and we're going to run it together forever. There's so much creating that can happen more ephemerally.
Yeah, I love that.
Forrest, I'm curious, how do you get user stories or user input, or work with personas to see what are the needs for creators and the super connectors?
Do you mean like what we're doing right now kind of thing, or do you mean on the app? It's like, do you mean technically on the app?
Yeah, like you're doing now. Like you're getting you're ask. I get the sense that you're asking the room, what we like to what we would like or need or want in this app.
Yeah, right now it's through conversations with people. I'm just connecting with people and saying like, hey, here's some things that I'm thinking about, and seeing where people take it. And there seem to be some pretty consistent. for a lack of a better word, pain points or just opportunities
Mhm.
for more robustness in meeting people and really getting into the juice of relationship more effectively. And that's really got my interest right now is like that specific part, meeting someone and being able to get to the like, is there something here in a really efficient way without needing to um like in air, I'm using air quotes, but like without needing to waste a lot of time doing kind of human stuff. I don't know. I want to be able to say that better, but like
No, no, no.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, no, though I like what you're saying. I just noticed Tucker Walsh has put a link in the chat, and if there's somebody here who is a super connector, James is a super connector, Tucker is a super connector. I'm sure Danielle and Mark. I haven't met you before. It's good to meet somebody new today. And Daryl, I know Daryl is yeah. So you've got the right people here, I think.
Yeah. I'm just reading this. I love this. The opt-in for the user to display the ways that are important to them for how they identify what models they work with. Got it. Okay.
Sorry.
This is just a random bit of feedback that doesn't need to turn into a thread, but on the topic of the name, like I'm like, oh, this is called, what is this called? Oh, this is theliminalweb.com. And I'm not going to try to like gatekeep the name or anything, but I'm going to say that like, well, I'm not going to use those words by themselves to refer to the app. So I'm going to end up saying something like theliminalweb.com matchmaking app, or I'm going to make up my own name to like disambiguate it from the liminal web. So that's just a thing.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, that's great. Yeah.
I'll just chime in. Oh, sorry, Forrest, were you going to say something?
Go ahead, Tucker. Yeah. I'm
This
just
is
affirming what James said. Yeah.
okay. I don't have good internet connection, so I'm going to keep my video off. But yeah, just sensing that the in-person component, like if the app had in-person events, maybe you guys have already talked about this. I came to the call late, but the fact that I've, hugged Danielle before and met Kevin multiple times before and know Daryl through Burning Man experiences, like there's Forrest, obviously we have a close connection and there's just something about like the imprinted memory of the physical somatic energetic experience of being in person that allows for the online connections to feel richer and yeah, to me like all these online events are beautiful in themselves, but they're also stepping stones to connecting deeper in person in the future. And maybe that's just like my particular desires as a human and my particular piece of the puzzle in this larger network or one of them. But it'd be interesting if the app was to facilitate bringing people together in real life mixers as well.
Yeah, I want to second that. That's very important for me too.
One of the things that we talked about, I think it was before you two hopped on, was showing on the profile like physical events I've gone to recently because it's such an identifier of what we care about,
Hmm.
what we spend our time and our energy and our attention and our money, right, attending in-person events. So actually on our profile being able to see, it could be an online event like Limicon, but it could also be the Integral Conference or Burning Man or whatever it is. And then, of course, also leading, as Tucker's saying, to future in-person connections. Yes, basically just yes to that. And then Danielle, to your question, can anyone join the app? I I think what we would do initially is have it be invite only. and have it be a really curated group of people so we can have network integrity, for lack of a better way to put it, and like intimacy, and really like foster a strong social field, and then start to open it up more. That's my, I don't have a strong attachment to that worldview, but that's just what comes to me. I'm open to lots of pushback on that and recreating it, but that's my initial thought. Yeah, exactly. Require two signatures from current members to join, something like that.
Like it almost seems like the vetting process,
Mm-hmm.
you know what I mean? If the vetting process is a thing, then you can feel comfortable in the space.
Right.
Then then vetting process plus location identifier gets you to maybe some in-person connections that you never knew you had. Like, oh, this person was in my backyard. I never knew they were there. And they're not scary because there's some sort of vetting into the space. That feels way better to me than like swiping. Like, and I'm an old person who has been on dating apps in this current thing, and it's terrible. And the idea of like swiping through liminal web people like makes my heart hurt.
Do you have, Danielle, do you have a we're talking about like technical functionality right now, but if swiping functionality makes your heart hurt, if there's, it's like, okay, the app is comprised of people who've got double verification of like they've been voted on by two other people in the app to join, and there's a proximity feature so you can meet people close to you. How do you imagine that those people would be served to you in terms of app functionality in a way that you would enjoy, that would make your heart sing instead of hurt?
Mm. I don't know that I have an answer to that question in the moment, but I will be chewing on that and let you know.
I have to go soon. I'm curious though if there's something that would be, and this is probably more of a question for you, Danielle, and I've never used one of these apps either. Is something like a not right now, not a no forever, but a not at this moment. Or like it doesn't work for me right now. It's like not a no to the person, but it's like more like a situational no. I don't really know.
Great question. Don't have an answer to that, but I like the question.
I'd recommend that there's a video with of the person talking and introducing themselves, so then you could feel resonance or not. Because I think the thing that's tough about a lot of dating apps is you just see some photos, and some people have great photos, some people have terrible photos. A lot of times people don't actually look like they look in the photos when you meet them in person. And but I think the thing that's more important for this network is like, do we feel an energetic resonance with the person's vibe? And I think that's what could make this different.
Ooh, combine that with the progressive revealing idea, which I really liked. And like if the four questions that, popped up when you did match, like were actually video answers,
Mm,
oh, that maybe that's a double word score there.
mm, cool. I like that, James. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
You know, every person is different. So I can see the incremental reveal being important. Some people, so there could be, I guess, a mismatch. Some people may want that incremental reveal, and some people may want to just jump in straight in with connection. um, so we want to honor the person who wants an incremental reveal. I think that would be the priority. I think the person who wants to jump in straight away with connection, I think they will appreciate having to wait and being okay. All right, this is okay.
think from a totally other angle, the organizers, like Tucker just shared, he's doing this source keeping gathering to connect connectors. And I wonder, I have a story that there's so many amazing people who are wanting to pull together workshops and facilitate things and even generate a livelihood doing this kind of stuff. And I feel like it could also really support people who are practitioners and facilitators to share, like from that perspective of here's things I'm pulling together, and there's already a curated group that would probably be interested in stuff that's going on. So I find that side of it really cool and supportive as well.
I thought of one more idea, which is that a lot of times I make connections for people. Well, when I say a lot of times, I mean like feels like at least once a day these days of like connecting somebody, texting them, or email introduction, connecting people to different podcast platforms. And if there's a way to do that through the app, but then to receive a fee, or like if there's a like if I connect Danielle and somebody else and they have a generative connection that somehow the algorithm can measure, that there's a form of reciprocity that comes back, that's built into the platform. I think that could be cool, even if it's just like money off the monthly bill that you pay to be a member of it. So it's incentivizing quality over quantity also.
I like that. By the way, I've got to jump to, I'm going to go to a People Need People session.
Cool. Thanks for being here, Kevin.
Yeah. Thanks for doing this, Forrest. I'm glad to meet you. And Sam, I mean, sorry, Mark.
Good to meet you. Yeah, I've got to bail out of here too.
Okay.
It's very interesting.
Thank you both. Nice to have you here.
Thanks. Cheers.
See you, James. Are you leaving? Okay. Good to be with you. Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
I guess, are we done?
Guess so. Yeah. That's great. Danielle, I just want to give you some appreciation. I feel your heart just booming out of you today, and it's nice to get to be with you. I'm really impacted by your presence and your sharing.
Thank you. Yeah, it booms out a lot, so I appreciate places to be able to put it. And I am excited to see how this work develops and what it can be because it just feels really cool.
It's a fun challenge. It's cool. There's so much in this call. I'm glad I recorded it. Can go back and watch it, but enough to probably chew on for a month, I imagine.
Yeah.
Like secretly hoping that I can somehow make enough progress on this in the next couple of weeks that I can reconvene another Limicon call and go, hey, we had that call. Like, let's reconvene and I can share with you what exists now, and then we can have a next steps conversation. That's the dream or the fantasy. We'll see if it happens.
I mean, I think even if the thinking has progressed in that time, like I think that's
Just do
a
it
brilliant idea. Just do it in 2 weeks and we'll come back and maybe all of our opinions will have changed too. You know what I mean? Like even from this call, hearing other people, I'm seeing some things different and so I don't know, it'll just be in our consciousnesses.
Yeah. Amazing.
Perfect.
Okay. Thank
All
you.
right. Talk to you later. Bye.
Daryl, nice to be with you.